y'all, Violet here, second generation homeschooling mom of 3. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an infant. Today I wanted to share with you some of my favorite poetry collections. So let's get into it. So my favorite collection, as just an overview and general introduction to all different kinds of poetry, is this A Child's Introduction to Poetry. We've used the Child's Introduction books for music before, and we really like them, and we also really like this poetry book. So it goes through different kinds of poems and has examples for each of them. And then part 2 is different famous poets, and then it has like a page on each of them. So for the kinds of poems, it usually will have an introduction to the kind of poem and then some examples of them. And a lot of these poems are on the CD. So here it says play track 10, and that's on the CD. And the newer editions of this have the tracks on their website. So it would just direct you to go to the website instead. And then for the different people featured in this, it gives you a biography and then some of their famous poems, and then again some tracks for you to listen to with them. So you can see the different poets that it features in here. It has a few pages about them with a few of their poems. So I've gone through the first half of this book, the different kinds of poetry, with my kids as a summer unit last year, and then I think this year we're going to go through the different poets this summer. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to doing that. My favorite poetry book, just as a general read aloud, read from every day, is the Sing a Song of Seasons, a nature poem for each day of the year. So it has 366 poems about all sorts of different nature things. So each month starts with a spread that tells you all the poems featured in that month. And then there's 1 to 3 poems on each page with really nice illustrations. So we really like this book. I like this book so much that I bought Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright. It's by the same people. The illustrator is different, but it's the same people who put it together, and it's very similar in style. And these are specifically animal poems. So each month, each day has a different animal poem, and usually each page is themed. Like here's the gorilla page, here's 3 poems about gorillas, and here's some about opossums. And so this one's really fun too. I like Sing a Song of Seasons a little bit better just because the poems are a little bit more, the topics are more diverse because it's covering all of nature and not specifically animals, but there's some really fun poems in this one too. So I'm glad I have this one as well. And they recently came out with this new collection, a funny poem for each day of the year. I am not a huge funny poem person. Sometimes they just don't land right for me. I don't know if I'm like extra sensitive or I don't know. But I do like this collection, but I'm probably not going to buy it. Funny poetry it isn't my thing. There's just too many poems in here that I just don't, I don't know. I guess I can't appreciate them properly or something. So yeah, I think this is a really good option if you know that your family really likes funny poetry. This next poetry collection is kind of more like what you would think of as traditionally classic poetry. It's organized into different themes, and it is illustrated, but this is all in black and white. And so this has a decent amount of different poets, but it's all pretty much just like the kind of what you would consider more classic poetry, I guess. But what I really like about this book is that it has notes in the margins telling you about the different poets and the different poems. And this is a good collection of poetry. I think it's out of print now, or the new edition of it maybe is like much smaller, like they reduced the number of poems in it, which I don't know why you would do that. But this is a good one for looking up like kind of those more well-known poems. So I really like reading from this one as well. This next one, A Child's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson. I like this edition illustrated by Brian Wildsmith specifically because they've removed the more problematic poems from the collection. So it's not the complete Children's Garden of Verses. It doesn't have the more problematic poems. And then there's a few that they've edited to remove words that now are considered racial slurs that were not at the time. So I like this edition because I don't have to censor what I'm reading much. And my kids I checked out a bunch of editions from the library, trying to decide which one to purchase. And of them all, my kids also liked the illustrations in this one the best. So that worked out really nicely for us. So if you're interested in Child's Garden Verses, I like that version. My daughter loves this book. My son will listen to me read this. Complete Book of the Flower Fairies by Cicely Mary Barker. But this is really something that I got for my daughter. And so this is all of they were published as small books originally, and then this is all of them collected. So there's each of the seasons, garden, trees, wayside, and alphabet. So each poem has and illustrations. So some of them have black and white illustrations, some of them have big color illustrations. I will say all the fairies are like white and blonde. I mean, some of them have brown hair, but they're all white little kids. There's no diversity in these pictures. But I do like her attention to detail with drawing the plants. Like you can actually identify the plants from these pictures. They're very detailed in that, in the like nature aspect of it. So we do read from this book a lot too. And some of the poems in it are really funny, like the dandelion poem where it talks about how it doesn't matter what you do to the dandelion, it'll always grow back. It's just very funny. So I said earlier, I don't really like funny poems, but I do like Jack Prelutsky a lot. His poems manage to be, for me, funny in a way that doesn't feel mean-spirited. I guess that's my problem with a lot of funny poems, is I either think it ends up being just like not funny or it ends up feeling a little bit mean-spirited. But his stuff, I don't feel that way about. So this is the collection that I had when I was a kid. And so I am sharing it now with my kids. I do think that's really important when you're studying poetry, to expose kids to a wide variety of poems so that they can figure out what they like, but also share with them the poems that you like, that you get excited about. So you can share some of that joy of poetry, especially if it's more like complicated poetry, knowing that you're sharing something you love can really help your kids appreciate it. So this book is by Joyce Sibman. I love all of her books, but this one my kids especially like. And Beth Cromes does beautiful illustrations for this book, and she illustrates, I've checked out every book that she's illustrated because I just really love her illustrations so much. But so the two of them working together on this book, it's just gorgeous. And my kids really like this book because it's a bunch of nature riddles. So the poems are riddles, and then the pictures will give you clues as to what the poems are talking about. So you're supposed to guess what each poem is talking about. And then the next page is facts, like scientific facts about the different animals or natural things that the poems are about. So the first two poems are about dew and grasshoppers, then it tells you about dews and grasshoppers on this page and has some beautiful pictures. And then the next page are more riddles. So it alternates page of riddles, page of nature facts about the animals that the riddles are about. So this book is really, really, really fun. And Joyce Sibman, all of her poetry books they're all nature inspired and they're all lovely, but this is the only one that's set up like every page is a riddle. And so my kids really, really like that. So I bought that one for us. If none of those poetry books looked like exactly what you're looking for, this next set of books are poetry collections that I really like, but I did not purchase for myself. We can just check them out from the library if we need them. So there's this series, Poetry for Kids. I just have this one to show you, but this is essentially, each volume focuses on a specific poet. So this one's Emily Dickinson. And so they're all illustrated. It has her poems, and it'll define different words if they're like less common words. And then at the back, it has a little bit about each poem and like what it's about. And then it talks a little bit about the author over here. So these are good at poetry for kids if you're trying to study a specific poet more in depth. Similarly, this next series, the Poetry for Young People series, it has a lot of overlap with the Poetry for Kids series. I think this one has more collections in it, but each volume is focused on a specific poet. So this is Robert Louis Stevenson, and it's set up the same, very similarly. Every poem's illustrated. There's definitions here for words that are maybe less common. And then at the back, it doesn't have anything else about the poet. It just has his poems. So, I mean, it talks a little bit about him in the introduction, but it doesn't have that discussion of what each of the poems is talking about that Poetry for Kids has. This next set of books are the National Geographic poetry collections. They're kind of similar to Sing a Song of Seasons. I happen to like Sing a Song of Seasons better. The poems in these they're also really nice poems, and the pictures are gorgeous, but a lot of these poems are a lot more contemporary. And I liked Sing a Song of Seasons better for having like a wider diversity of both older poets and newer poets. So that was just kind of my preference. But these two books are also really good if you're looking for like a collection of a bunch of different kinds of poems that talk about nature or animals. And then I also saw that National Geographic has this Poetry of Us that's specifically U.S. poets. So it's set up just like the other National Geographic poetry books with pictures, but it's by region. So that's kind of cool. I don't think I'm going to purchase this just because we already have a lot of poetry books that we read from, but I may check this out periodically as we are moving in history now closer to studying U.S. history. But yeah, I thought this was really cool. So those are all the poetry collections that I really like. I hope you found that helpful. Thank you for watching. I'll put links to everything in the description box below. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you click on a link and make a purchase, I do receive a small commission. Thanks.